When I notice that we lose, it indicates that we lose less money. There has been a slowdown. Container transport reservations from China to the US are down by almost 50%, and Seattle and Los Angeles shipping ports are closing. It appears that the three major West Coast shipping ports are no longer receiving foreign shipments. The final one is set for tomorrow. 37,000 brand new automobiles are stranded at US ports. They are not broken or defective. They are simply blocked. There are no strikes or storms, only tariffs. The plan no longer includes approximately 50% of container shipments from China to the US. No breaking news. No press alert. Simply a blank. The space where a ship once was, what's happening isn't a coincidence. It's a political decision with economic ramifications, and the ports are the first to suffer. The slowdown began before anyone in Washington could respond. And by May 2025, it was evident and not just theoretical. This was policy-driven, and it hit like a wall in the first 2 weeks of June 10th, when scheduled. Cargo vessels were canceled with no replacement in sight. Normally, it's filled with like shipping containers on top of shipping containers. Maybe 5, piled high 5, somewhere around 5. I don't really know. That's more blank sailings than the entire previous year, compressed into 14 days. The Port of Los Angeles reported the steepest single-month decline in cargo volume since the pandemic, a 35% drop. Oakland, Long Beach, Savannah, and New York all reported increasing cancellations and declining volumes. But the harm was reciprocal. American shipments were rejected, and soybeans that were previously transported through West Coast ports are now loaded in Brazil. Desperate exporters are attempting to reroute through Canada and Mexico, but that only works for companies large enough to afford delays and detours. Small manufacturers are stuck, and the result is brutal cranes that once moved non-stop now sit idle. Truck drivers report fewer calls, and poultry shipments are stalled. Tractors, steel, and electronics all sitting in containers waiting for ships that no longer come. The main problem is that train stations are quiet warehouses that are filling up with products that cannot be moved rather than things to sell. This is a demand-supply gap caused by geopolitics, not a supply chain issue. The lanes did not collapse due to a lack of demand. Rather, they were blocked by retaliation. Each canceled vessel serves as a message. Each idle crane costs money. Each blocked truck represents a missing salary. This isn't a bug. Rather, it's the new, fragmented, politicized, and unpredictable nature of commerce for a system that relies on speed, efficiency, and size. This type of paralysis can be fatal. The crisis began at the White House in April 2025, when the U.S. government unveiled a comprehensive tariff proposal that would impose a 10% tax on all imports, regardless of origin. This was only the beginning, and things swiftly got out of hand. The world responded quickly and strategically to the most aggressive protectionist measure in 2 decades, which included 25% tariffs on imported automobiles and a targeted 50% on imports from the European Union. There were no exclusions, transition periods, or international coordination. The European Union responded to China's overnight reinstatement of tariffs on us, agricultural and aviation goods, by blocking low-volume e-commerce shipments with license slowdowns and inspection delays. Within a week, the cost of conducting commerce had shifted against America as Canada redirected outbound freight to avoid U.S. customs risk. When large carriers experienced abrupt volatility, they started to remove capacity blank sailings, canceled vessel departures, and the impact on shipping reached all-time highs. COSCO and Ocean Network Express, 2 Mediterranean shipping companies, discontinued several weekly trans-Pacific services. The complete container routes were removed from schedules due to the possibility of delays, costs, and retaliation. Not because demand had decreased. This was a response to ambiguity rather than logistics in the wake of a natural disaster. And in international trade, uncertainty is the most costly variable when tariffs, duties, and compliance regulations are unclear. Exporters repress in a matter of weeks. Importers halt, freight operators retreat. The extremely efficient supply network that supplied American stores started to shrink. Confidence, not capacity, was the issue. Businesses halted operations today because they were unsure of which regulations will be in effect tomorrow. This is not a slowdown. Rather, it is paralysis. And it all began with a single signature. One policy choice that disregarded the system's actual fragility, the public turning point, was June 2025. Within days, the White House made its most bold announcement to date: a possible 50% tariff on all imports from the European Union. Target was Apple, whose message was straightforward: either bring iPhone production back to the US or pay a 25% tariff on every unit imported. It wasn't just a threat to the economy, it was a declaration of power. And for businesses around the world, it sent the message that if Apple isn't safe, nobody is. However, the real repercussions started long before that headline in May, as the shipping lanes revealed in April 2025. The US government imposed a sweeping 10% universal tariff on all imports, effective immediately with no exemptions or grace period for supply chain managers. This caused chaos, with prices becoming volatile overnight and profit margins disappearing from one spreadsheet refresh to the next. It wasn't fear, rather, it was strategy. Container bookings from China to the US dropped by nearly 50%, not because demand collapsed, but because companies were pulling back preemptively. Shipping lines couldn't calculate risk, exporters couldn't guarantee arrival, and retailers had to start reducing purchase volumes because the political climate had made forecasting impossible. Routes were halted by carriers to reevaluate expenses. What started out as a price change swiftly evolved into a comprehensive overhaul of the way commerce was intended to operate. But the first signs of trouble actually appeared subtly back in Q1, when warehouses started to run lower than anticipated. Inventory restocks and delivery windows were missing. Even prior to the announcement of any policy changes, products began to arrive weeks late. In internal memos, retail chains pointed out these early disruptions, but most executives dismissed them as leftover noise from the pandemic years. Instead, those early cracks were signs of something more serious: a fragile system already under stress and waiting for a policy shock to tip it over. By the time the public learned about tariffs, the slowdown had already begun. The question now is not when it began, but whether there is a way to stop it before the system breaks completely by mid-2025. America's logistics machine isn't just under stress, it's beginning to seize. Both FedEx and UPS have acknowledged layoffs. In their freight departments, particularly in the cross-border and long-haul sectors, internal memos indicate route consolidation and volume reductions. But the message is unambiguous: fewer employment, fewer drivers, and fewer parcels in comparison to early 2024. Load board platforms say that available cargoes have decreased by more than 30%, and regional trucking companies are completely discontinuing routes. The flow is breaking at every connection, and importers can no longer guarantee delivery windows. Some long-haul carriers are now driving back empty in order to keep on schedule, squandering fuel and money without receiving any goods. In certain instances, containerized goods are arriving only to sit in customs for weeks, caught in a bureaucratic limbo caused by rapidly changing tariff codes, new inspection protocols, or country of origin disputes. When the goods finally clear, they frequently arrive too late to meet contractual obligations. Suppliers are missing milestones, and orders are being pushed back, rerouted, or canceled outright. Retailers and wholesalers have been obliged to provide clients with three-tiered price quotes as an emergency fix for a malfunctioning forecasting system because of the uncertainty that is permeating pricing. Small and medium-sized businesses, which are the backbone of Main Street, are unable to plan inventory or budget cash flow because there is only one price if the goods arrive on time and undamaged. One if they are subject to mid-route tariffs or additional duties, and one if the shipment is canceled completely and must be resourced domestically at a premium. While production schedules are being shortened, some are reducing SACs to lessen exposure, and others are over-ordering to protect against loss. Capital expenditures are paused, hiring has slowed, and payments are frequently delayed, not because of insolvency, but because of uncertainty. Since no one can predict what will ship or clear, no one wants to commit, and what was once the world's most accurate commercial network, a system built on just-in-time global efficiencies, now operating on a hunch. As this paralysis worsens, the downstream effects are already evident, with warehouses full but only with immobile goods. The bottom line is that this isn't a slowdown, Rather, it's dysfunction at scale. Assembly lines are halting due to missing parts, not a lack of demand. Customer service teams are overloaded with refunds and complaints, not questions. Even industry titans like Walmart and Home Depot are reporting longer than usual restock times, while smaller businesses are simply discontinuing certain product lines. Policymakers remain mute every day, and trucks, but also store shelves, paychecks, and entire business models. A logistics system only needs